everyone. I'm just inviting our guest. Bear with me.
Hello.
Hello.
I was like, I don't know how to do this live thing.
I know. It's a bit tricky sometimes. How are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
This is the long-awaited live that we've
I
been
know,
talking
we've been
about.
talking about this for a while. I'm glad that we actually are doing it at the moment.
Yeah.
Cool.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just hot. So hot today.
Trust me.
Guys.
There's a lot in here.
Yeah.
But let's not complain, because if it starts getting
I know.
cold again. So
I know, it's true. Okay, so let me introduce today's conversation. So for anyone that doesn't know who I am, my name is Genevieve. I am a CBT therapist, and I also run the Wellbeing Blueprint. And over here we talk about all things mental health, well-being, and also societal issues that impact mental health. So we've been having these kind of conversations over the last few weeks. So today's conversation is titled How to Overcome Rejection and Mental Health in Creative Industries. And I have the amazing Oluwatosin here with me. So I will let you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Jen. So my name is Oluwatosin. I recently changed back from my English name to my African name. So some of you who may be on here may be thinking Oluwatosin. But yeah, so that is my name going forward forever and ever and ever. I'm a professional dancer, choreographer, movement artist. I also trade Forex on the side. And yeah, I'm just a creative. I don't like to box myself into, like, you know, I'm a dancer, because I do so much more than that. I act as well. I've been part of theatre productions. And yeah, I'll just define myself as a creative entrepreneur. So that's me.
Impressive.
But I've not always done that. I've always done it on the side. So I also have a background in the humanitarian field. So I worked with charities, and yeah, so I also enjoy that side of things. And I'm hoping, my big goal is to bring arts and humanitarian work together, because I do believe there's power in art to be able to change the world. So that is my long-term goal. So
yeah, and hopefully today we can talk a bit more about Movement 21 as well. So
yes,
share a bit more about that.
Yes, I'm also the creative director of Movement 21. Let's not forget that.
We'll talk about that a bit more, because it's amazing. It's really inspiring. So yeah, we've got quite a few people in the live, so let's get started. So why do you think this is an important topic to discuss? So mental health, rejection in creative industries. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's very important because, you know, as dancers, artists, I believe that we go through a lot. We stand in front of people, we stand in front of a panel, and they make a judgment as to whether, you know, we are good or not. Even if that's not their intention, it's what basically an audition process is. So you're basically standing in front of someone and saying, oh, do you like me? You know, have I done this right? Is this right for you? So even though they don't mean it in a way that it's like saying that you're wrong or right or whatever, but that is the industry. So I do believe that talking about, you know, mental health and rejection is so important. You know, having been through it myself, you know, I think it's so important to talk about, because so many people in the industry go through, you know, it could be maybe, obviously rejection, other mental health issues, anxiety, fear, comparison. There's just so much in the creative industry that goes on, and I do believe that this is a topic to talk about. And I can shed some light, and also you give us
some insight from my perspective as well. No, that's amazing to hear your perspective and, you know, your experience. And just based on what you said, it makes me realize how important it is to be resilient, because if you're constantly being told yes or no over time, that will impact maybe your self-esteem. And I don't think I'd be able to handle that consistently, because it's really difficult. Sounds difficult anyway. But I think from my perspective, I think it's also really important to look at the difference between perfectionism, so clinical perfectionism, and excellence, so striving for excellence. And often I find that when it comes to such industries, the lines can become very blurred. So, you know, it's that constant strive to do really well or to achieve, but then it's like, at what point do we distinguish it to be maybe unhealthy or unhelpful? And then at what point is it, you know, excellence and something that you can commend and something that helps you in your life?
Yeah. That is, that's such a great point. And is that line, is that, where does that stop? You know, because I'm gonna own up, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I say that and I try to break out of that, because perfection is, there's nothing that's perfect. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing that's perfect in this world. Everything's gonna have a bit of wonkiness, blemish, or whatever. Nothing's perfect. But I feel like we are in a society where we're always striving, you know, for greatness. But then where do we kind of cut that and be like, okay, you can strive for greatness and want to do everything that you do with, you know, with 100%, which I always strive to. But then when do you start like nitpicking and thinking, I didn't do this right, or you know? And it's something that we like, I just like owning up. You know, I recently started my YouTube channel. You know, my first video I was going to post, I delayed myself because I was like, oh my gosh, this is not perfect. It's like the most littlest things. So, but I'm trying to now be like, okay, I want to be excellent, but I'm not trying to be perfect. I just want things to be seamless, but not wanting to like have everything right on every single count, you know? So
and I think what would be really useful in today's conversation is to actually define perfectionism, because especially clinical perfectionism, because in society it's almost deemed as a positive thing. You know, I'm a perfectionist. Might look like, you know,
people use it in interviews.
It's normal. It sounds normal. It's not a negative thing, and it's not a mental health illness either. It's more so a personality trait. So for someone to say I'm a perfectionist, they might look like they're just high achievers. It actually looks quite good. You know, they work really hard. They've got high standards. It's not necessarily a negative thing. However, when it comes to clinical perfectionism, I think one of the key points, especially within your field, is that it can lead to depression, anxiety, stress, and other common mental health conditions. Whereas excellence, just regular excellence, striving for excellence without the clinical perfectionism, doesn't do that. So that is why I really want us to touch on clinical perfectionism and what that looks like. So before I talk about it from my perspective, I would like to know what you think it is. So I know you said that you've got elements of perfectionism, etc., but how would you define it?
I would define it as like doing everything well, and there's no room for error or any kind of mistake. Like you have to, like, imagine you're going in a straight line, but you can't go to the side. It has to be just straight and just perfect. Like every grain of hair, or if you're lining up rice, it has to be in a perfect roll. It's just that thing of doing something with no room for mistakes or error. Do you know what I mean? Obviously there's some industries that, you know, you have to pay attention and stuff like that, but that's still not perfect. But it's this thing that I don't know, maybe from when we grow up, it's just that thing that we adopt, and it's just, it doesn't exist, you know. That's how I would describe it anyways. Do
you know what, I think when you said no room for error, that's literally nailed it, because within clinical perfectionism there is no room for error. But I'd like to know what you guys think as well. Just drop a comment in the box. So what are your thoughts on perfectionism? What do you think it is? How would you define it? And can you relate? Do you have traits of perfectionism? Because it's more or less a positive thing in society. So what are your thoughts? Okay, so whilst people are commenting, from a clinical perspective, perfectionism is defined as the relentless pursuit to achieve high standards. How these high standards are defined, it's a very personal thing. For one person, or for a person that's a perfectionist, it's normal, it's not unrealistic. However, to another person, it's a little bit unrealistic. The problem with that is often, like you said, there is no room for error. So when things go wrong, there are no other reasons as to why it went wrong. So, you know, a person might find it hard to think about other factors that could have contributed to not actually achieving that goal. A problem with that also is that it makes your self-esteem quite vulnerable. because your self-esteem or your self-worth is attached to your ability to achieve such high standards. So not being able to achieve this high standard, so being very rigid and not being able to achieve might mean, for example, I'm a failure if I don't, for example, get that audition. Or if I don't get that booking, it is me. I'm a failure. And it doesn't allow you to think outside of the box. Maybe I am not the best fit for this job. Or maybe I'm just not great today. And you can become very rigid in your thinking. And just based on that alone, you can only imagine how that would impact your mental health. You might end up feeling very depressed, quite anxious, very stressed, but we'll get into that a bit more. And also with clinical perfectionism, there is a negative consequence that comes with it. So in extreme cases, for some it might not look extreme, but it can look very blurred. It might look like overtraining yourself and being very rigid with the rules that you set for yourself. So just so that you'll understand, I'll give you a very extreme example. For some athletes or some dancers, like ballet dancers, they might maybe overtrain themselves and then start to count calories so that they can remain at a certain weight, because that weight determines how well they will perform. Now, if you really think about it, that is, it can impact you in the long run. It impacts your health. However, the lines become very blurred because it's important to train as a dancer, right? It's important to watch your weight. It's important to eat healthily. But with clinical perfectionism, it becomes very extreme. So that, from my perspective, those are things that I look out for, even when people are speaking, you know, when they talk about their industry and stuff like that.
Like I've learned a lot just from hearing you speak and just thinking like, wow, like it is, because we are in the industry where, you know, you want to perform at your best. You want to book jobs. You want to be the best. But where do we draw the line where it starts affecting our mental health? Do you know what I mean? And like, you know, when I started getting into the industry, this is things that I had to look into and really know, and really had to find myself, so I know who I was before I was going into any audition, into any settings where you know, I know that I could be judged in any way. But because I got to a place where I knew myself, I already made like I created a mechanism to be able to deal with anything that was thrown at me. It's not like, okay, it happens straight away. Maybe I may feel it straight away, but then I have to do this thing where I remember. So just hearing you speak about that, I'm like, there is a lot of that in our industry. And I think, you know, just shedding light on it and knowing that, like, we don't have to be perfect. We can work hard. There's a difference between, and you know what, a place that really helped me, and I don't know whether she's on this call, is Charlene Willett's Runway House, where I trained. So I had some years out of dance. Like I was at university, I was still dancing, but I wasn't training. So after, when I got into full-time work, I was like, okay, I need to go back to training. And Charlene Willets used to train me from when I was 16. And at Runway House, that really helped me like work on my mindset. It allowed me to know who I was as an artist. Like, so it's not just like training the steps, it's actually building you up to be resilient for the industry. And I owe that place a lot, because I think if I didn't have that, if I didn't have that training of the mind body as well, mind and body connection, I think probably my career would have gone a different way. Maybe I would have given up by now. Maybe I would have been like, oh, I'm not good enough. But what I learned there whilst I was training was that push yourself, work hard. You don't have to be perfect, but as long as you're working hard, that is what matters. So just to add that, like, I know we've not got to that bit yet, but I was like,
No, and I love the fact that you said you had to train your mindset also, and that created a difference in the outcome of, you know, how you are within your industry. But I'd like to know, what are some of the things that you did to train your mindset, and how is your mindset now?
Okay, so when I first got back into dance, my mindset wasn't in the right place. I would own up to that. I was always kind of judging myself, because I was training with people who had been probably dancing since they were 3. And I've been dancing in African parties since I was 3. That was probably been in my blood, but not like a ballerina or legs here. Anyways, I started training at Runway House. I would like be like, oh, I didn't get the routine today, or I didn't get picked out. Like getting picked out is basically when the teacher does the class and they kind of select people. They don't do it out of like, oh, picking. They just pick it so you can see how they want the routine to be done. But this is something that can also make people feel a bit inadequate sometimes. You know what I mean? If your mindset is not in the right place. So I used to be like, oh, I didn't get picked out today. Maybe I didn't work hard enough. But I was actually working at where I was at, but I wasn't registering that. Do you know what I mean? But as I went on in my journey, I started kind of saying to myself, it's your journey. You've got a full-time job. You dance in the evening. You're not taking class every single, like, be okay with your journey. And then, you know, that was the start of it. I started to talk to myself. So I do a lot of self-talk. Even when I'm in the class, I have to do a lot of self-talk, saying to myself, okay, don't compare yourself. Look straight forward. Like, do not look side or left. Like, everyone's journey is different. So that's one of the things I did. And like I said, in terms of Runway House, it prepares your mind as well, you know, to not compare yourself, to train hard, but not want to be perfect. So there's a difference between being lazy and not trying at all, than actually, like, maybe you're not, like, I wasn't great. I wasn't at the place I wanted to be, but I was a fighter. One thing I had down was my performance. Even if I got the routine wrong, I will fall over and still perform. So that was me. I knew that was me. But yeah, so what I used to do is just talk to myself and like try and get rid of those negative kind of talks or whatever, or talk to friends about it, and then they kind of, like, other dance friends who I spoke to, and you know, they would kind of encourage me and stuff like that. So talking to other people that you trust is really good as well, and one of the things I did. But yeah, I think generally I've got quite a strong mindset just because of my upbringing. You know, I grew up in Nigeria since I was 9. You used to get the cane in school. I already had that, but you know, it doesn't mean that I didn't go through any kind of mindset shifts, like, you know, any kind of mental kind of health things during my dance journey. But yeah, just talking to myself, listening to motivational people, looking at stories of people who were never good but they became great. Do you know what I mean? And I posted today on my story that I love it when the underdog wins. Like, when people that you thought, oh, they'll never, you know, the person in the school races who was never fast, but then one day they just surpassed everyone else. Like, that is what makes me happy. I love seeing that because you've seen that person's journey and it's their testimony, you know, rather than you seeing someone who's always kind of won, which is great because, you know, some people are excellent like that. But when you've seen someone's journey, like, who was never great and they become great, it's so amazing to see.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing because one of the things that stood out to me was when you spoke about your journey and you were able to identify the importance of your journey. And it reminds me of something that Les Brown said, where he spoke about it's important to think of it in a sense of, what was it? It's look for progress and not perfection. And part of that will require you to get things wrong sometimes. You will make mistakes sometimes, but it's okay. Take one day at a time. Progress should be what you're looking for as opposed to perfection, because perfection really doesn't exist. It's all in the mind. It's your imagination of what perfection is. But I also wanted to talk about the perfectionism or perfectionism paradox. So when it comes to perfectionism, this might be a new term for some people. You know, having goals is a really good thing because it helps you to achieve. You know, if you don't have goals, you can't really strive for things out of your comfort zone, for example. But on the other hand, so the paradox is that when you maybe achieve certain goals, it can get in the way. So perfectionism can get in the way of your happiness. So I often hear people saying, oh, you know what, I've worked so hard and I'm here now, but then they find it hard to be happy. And it's not just in, you know, the creative industry, it's within life. You know, some people might have this idea, e.g. marriage, and then they think that it's going to be perfect. I'm going to have X, Y, and Z. My partner's going to be X, Y, and Z. But then the reality is not what they thought. Meaning that they will never feel happy. So those are some of the dangers with the paradox of perfectionism. And another one, I don't know if you've experienced this, but perfectionism can also impair your performance. So constantly striving to be this person in the long run can affect you where you don't even perform as well.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just in terms of dance and stuff, because obviously you're learning choreography and you want to get it exactly how the choreographer has given it to you, you know. But the thing is that you're never going to look exactly like a choreographer, but you want to try and look at least close. Do you know what I mean? So there can be that struggle in between, like being perfect and trying to get everything, all the details, even like the little pinky finger.
Yeah.
And, you know, it can be to a detriment as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like for me, obviously I love learning choreography, but one thing I love about dance is that the freedom of dance, and that's why I love freestyle, because I can just be free in my movement. But choreography is just as important as a dancer. But yeah, you can get to that point where you start underperforming because you want to be perfect. Yeah. Or you put so much pressure on yourself. One thing that I do in my training is that, you know, you dance by yourself so you can rely on just yourself, and people are watching. Because we have a performance, people are going to watch us, you know. So, you know, you dance by yourself, and sometimes you feel like you have to be perfect in that, you know. I know that sometimes I think that, but that's why for me the mechanism of just talking to yourself, like even when I get on the floor to do it, I'm like, Oluwatosin, you got this, you can do this. Yeah. And then my goal behind it is like me achieving and getting to A to B in the best way that I can, not in the way that's going to be perfect and I don't get anything wrong and I don't make any mistakes. Mistakes is all part of the process. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that, because, you know, even before, like getting ready to perform for you know, a show. I remember I had to learn a show called the Head Wrap Diaries. Big up Uchenna Dance, I love them. And I was a swing in the show. A swing is basically you come in and you learn someone else's track, someone else's part. So I did that in 3 days. I didn't even know I could do it. I was like, thank you, Jesus. It was only by God's grace. And I had to learn that in 3 days. So I started on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The creative director came to see it, me perform the whole thing. And then Thursday was the day we traveled to the venue, and then Friday was a performance. And, you know, I was trying to be perfect in that whole thing, but I was like, listen, just do you know it, just do what you know, and bring Oluwatosin into it, as opposed to trying to be the person that did it before, because you can never be that person. You have to bring yourself. And as soon as I told myself that, my mindset shifted. And even something went wrong in the show where I actually forgot to come in, but then it was funny. So then this shows that trying to be perfect, sometimes you don't give yourself room to have like the odd moments that I can actually bring the human elements into things. Do you know what I mean? And that moment, we, you know, me and the cast, we were laughing about it, because then it delayed it, and then there was an extra funny element in the show. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, wow, you tried to be perfect, but then imagine everything was so perfect and there was no room for like error or like just that fun little moments that makes people go, you know.
And to be human as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the key word, being human. There's no human that's perfect. Do you know what I mean?
And it just makes me think about how self-defeating perfectionism is. Constantly striving for very rigid standards. It's unrealistic. It's really unrealistic. So
definitely,
we've spoken a lot about perfectionism. What are your thoughts, guys? So someone said perfectionism can lead to procrastination. We're actually going to get to that in a second. The paradox of perfectionism, mind-blowing. Yeah, cool. Keep your comments coming, guys. Okay, so let's talk about perfectionist behaviors. So some of the traits that you will see in someone who would be deemed as a perfectionist. It's such a hard word. What are some of the traits that you think you might see?
I think probably like reading into things too much, like spending so long on something. Again, like that whoever said the procrastination thing, you know, you start to it because you're like, oh, I want this to be perfect before I start. So sometimes you never actually start doing something, you know. And I've experienced that as well. Like I'll have ideas in my head, like really good ideas, but I'll be like, oh no, it's not this way, you know, it's not that, you know. It's just that fear. There's fear. I feel like there's also fear attached to it. Like if I'm not perfect, what will people say? And that's why, And that's why daily I just have to say to myself, I can't care about what Tom, Harry and Sally are saying, you know, like that is my saying. I don't care. I can't care about what they're saying because it's just going to slow me down. Like, let people talk. Do you know what I mean? Eventually you'll get to where you want to go to. So I think it can cause delay. It can cause obviously fear. It can cause you not achieving. It can cause illness. Do you know what I mean? Like you said about, you know, the eating stuff, you know, wanting to have like the perfect physique and stuff like that, you know. Like for me, it's so funny because yesterday I was on a shoot and I was saying, oh yeah, you know, I got quarantine thighs, you know, during this is what I call it. But I've just learned to see a positive in, like, maybe I did gain a little bit of pounds, but I'm not obese, but I'm still active. So when I work out now, it's to be strong, as to not, rather than be skinny. Like, you know, so, you know, that going back to, you know, dancers having to be athletes. So I think about being an athlete as opposed to me being, you know, like slim, which that's another thing that comes into like artistry and trying to have a perfect body. There is no perfect body.
There is no perfect body.
You know? So yeah, I think those are the main traits that comes into mind right now. And just overlooking into things and not wanting to do things because, you know, you're not doing it in the right time, the perfect time. That's another thing. What is the perfect time and stuff? I think it's a journey, because I think we all, like, kind of in our heads we have that, but it's trying to break those habits so that we're having a healthy relationship with our goals and everything we want to achieve. So
I'll definitely agree with everything that you said. I would also add, within perfectionism, often people might seek reassurance, so they might not be able to reassure themselves, give up easily if things go wrong, they might struggle to make a decision in a timely manner, maybe because they're scared of the decision that they make. It might not be the perfect decision. They might also avoid situations where they may fail, and also not knowing when to stop. I think those are some of the main traits. What are your thoughts, guys? Any other things?
Those traits, I agree with every single thing. The whole thing about reassurance, I think I was there once upon a time. I was there where I wanted someone to reassure me, oh, you're doing good, you're doing great, you know, always wanting feedback, you know, always wanting, like, am I doing okay? And then I had to get to a point, like, even like managing something like Movement 21, a project that I came up with, you know, like I was oh, should I do it? Even this year I was thinking, oh, should I do it? Like, is it, you know, is it needed? Do people need it? But then I had to go back and remember my why. Your why is so important to why you do things. And I was like, no, I don't want perfection. I just want it to help people. And even if it helps one person, then it's done its job. Do you know what I mean? And I think everything that you said, I just like this is making knowing thanks Kennedy, because I actually was good the points, knowing when to stop. When do you stop? Do you know what I mean? Over this quarantine time, like, there was so many online classes, especially for dancers, so many, like, it was overwhelming to the point where I was like, I can't make a timetable for myself. But I was like, okay, it's okay. You don't have to be in every class. You don't have to do this to show that you're working hard. So for me, I created a routine. I have something called Monday Moves. Every Monday I dance. If I'm going to dance any extra in the week, that is just a plus. But every Monday I know that I train, you know, and it's not for, I do Monday Moves. It's not for anything to be like, oh, I want to book a job or for an audition. This is just for myself and for my mental health, for me to just move my body and dance. And also I work out, but I work out because I enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? So you start changing the things that maybe have a negative thing, like, oh, I have to work out to look in this certain way, but to more as a healthy thing. Do you know what I mean? And to, you know, I did a few challenges which I saw my body change, which is amazing, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, my goal is that. It's just let me do this because it's a good challenge. But I think with perfectionism, like, just know when to stop, and knowing like you don't have to be, like, no one is. So fail forward, make the mistakes. Do you know what I mean? I've learned so much from my mistakes. Like, how do you learn if you never fail? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's important.
And going back to what you said, one of the things I picked out is that you know, doing your Monday, is it Monday moves?
Yeah, Monday moves.
Yeah. It sounds like that's enjoyable, and it sounds like you've moved from I have to I would like to. And I think just simply modifying your thoughts gives you room to enjoy certain things, and it's not so rigid, like I must do it. It's not a critical parent in your mind. Like, for example, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but the parent that will always say, go and do your homework all the time. You know, your voice, yourself, the voice in your mind changes. And I think that overall has a positive impact on how you feel as well. But I would love for you to talk a bit more about your rejection experiences. So it could be audition rejections or just self-rejections, anything.
Maybe I'll start with self-rejection. I think rejection is such a big topic. Do you know what I mean? That even goes beyond just being in the arts. It's like, you know, rejection. It can start, obviously it starts in your mind. I feel, anyways, for me, it starts in your mind. Like, you could, you know, reject yourself, like, oh, I'm not good, like just the negative things you say to yourself, like, oh, I'm not good enough, like, I'll never get this, all these negative self-talk, which I didn't actually realize that I had until like later down the line, when I actually started to be like, no, and affirm myself. And I realized actually in the past there's a lot of negative things that I would say about myself. Oh, I'm not pretty, or I'm not this, I'm not that. But it's also what other people had said to me. Even like in terms of me changing my name back to Oluwatosin, I was rejected for having that name and made fun of in primary school. So rejection actually started from there. And then I was going by Tina, which is an English name, and was more accepted because I didn't want to be rejected. Do you know what I mean? So that is kind of like experience of like self-rejection, and then just not feeling like you're good enough. And then in arts, you know, going to auditions and you know, you don't get it, but then in your mind you're like, oh, you know, it's probably because I wasn't good. It's maybe because I didn't train enough, or maybe because, you know, I don't look a certain way, you know, maybe because I'm black, you know, like there's so many things that, you know, that you experience in terms of rejection in the arts world. And that's why I had to say to myself, and just, you know, like for me, like my identity is in God. That's who I believe in. And he reminds me daily of who I am. So I had to get to a point where, despite whatever environment I'm in, I have to know who I am. I have to know that I was created for greatness, even if I'm not yet great. I have to know that his purpose for me to dance and to help people through the arts and to inspire people and to encourage people is going to happen, whether I get rejected or not. And sometimes rejection, what I started to learn, is a redirection into something else. Do you know what I mean? So if I am rejected from this thing, I this is now my mindset. I'm just like, oh, something better is coming. The best is yet to come. That is just my mindset. But there is one experience, actually. It wasn't even a job. It was just like to perform at this massive show called Move It. And I auditioned to be in a piece by two amazing choreographers. And it came to the decision making, and I didn't get it. You know, and I was so upset because I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to get it. But my ability in the certain style, one style was strong, but the other style that was needed was not as strong yet. So I was sorry, one second. So I didn't get it, but the choreographer said such lovely things about me and stuff like that, but that didn't register. I didn't think about the lovely things. I just thought about, I've been rejected, that's it. And that day I drove home and I was listening to Destiny's Child. I'm doing so good. I was like, I'm doing so. I actually cried in the car, and then I said to myself, I was like, are you okay? Like, what is wrong with you? Like,
but the thing is, a lot of people can relate to this.
I was like, and it wasn't even a paid job. It was to perform at a massive convention, which is, you know, every dancer wants to perform there. And it was to work with the two choreographers who I really respect and really want to work with and be in the room. So it was more about the experience. And I didn't get it. And I was like, wow. But then it pushed me. It was like, okay, now that is your least, like, that's the area of weakness. So why don't you develop yourself? And then So that rejection helped me. So I think it's a matter of seeing rejection as a good thing and being like, okay, so that's what they're looking for. Okay, I'm not it yet, but give me a year, I'll be back. Do you know what I mean? Like
that's really good.
Yeah.
Because what I can hear two things. So previously, when you spoke about, you know, you find your identity in God, and you know that you're destined for great things, that already shows that you have separated your self-worth from what you do. And I think often the problem is when people attach their self-worth to what they do. So for example, you know, if somebody is an athlete, a runner, and they don't run or they don't win the race, it can easily become a thing where they think that, oh, I am a failure because I didn't win the race, as opposed to today was not a good day, or somebody else was stronger than me. And when it comes to perfectionism, just like you mentioned, sometimes you can become so focused on the negatives, so what you didn't do well at, as opposed to looking at all the other things that you do well at. So it can really distort your interpretation and distort how you view things. But I can see that how you didn't allow that to also cause you to avoid certain things, because often people with perfectionism might avoid maybe going for another audition because I'm not good enough or I'm a bad dancer. I can hear that you actually pushed to work on certain things that were your weaknesses, and you developed your strengths, which no longer makes you feel vulnerable. Now you're really good at what you do. So that is very that's healthy. I love to see that, as opposed to people that say, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to quit, or I'm hiding from certain things, I can't face it, I'm too scared to fail. And it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to potentially fail.
I totally agree. It takes a lot. Like, we're in an industry where you're constantly fighting a battle, but it's how you have to find the way to help you navigate the industry. So I always hear, oh, our industry is this, our industry is that. Why don't you change how you view it, so that the industry can be conducive to like your being and who you are? So you step into a room and you change the atmosphere. You decide that actually I'm not going to let the looks or the negative, because I'm a person, I discern a lot. So I can walk into a room and I can just feel that the energy there is not good. But I had to come up with a technique that I zone out. I zone out. I'm still very pleasant with people, whatever, but I just zone out the other isms. And I just literally block it out, because I'm just like, okay, my purpose is to do what I need to do and do it well. Do you know what I mean? Do it to put my all into this. And when I started doing that, I literally felt a shift. Like, I'm not the person I was, because I started training properly as a dancer at 25. I'm now 30. So I started late as well. And
but you're great. Also, I must throw that in there.
Genevieve.
So good, honestly.
Oh, bless you. And that's another thing as well. Starting late, you feel like, oh my gosh, my time is done. But I had to say to myself, no, my time is not done. You know, I know that this purpose is within me. I've always loved dance. I've always like, it's the feeling when I hear music, or when I move, there's something that I can't describe to anyone who may not understand, that I feel, that I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Do you know what I mean? Whether people like it or not, I know within myself what I'm doing is what I should be doing. But yeah, like just the Patsy, but I can't. She wrote Wireless. Big up Wireless crew. If Kofi
oh, Wireless from university. Oh, explain to people.
Essex Uni massive. But yeah,
people don't know what Wireless is.
Oh, Wireless. If Kofi's on here, Kofi Hesse was a group that he put together. We actually all put it together at uni. I met Kofi at uni, but he was big in the dance world. He's still big. I'm waiting for him to make his comeback. So if you're here, I'm waiting for you. Yeah. Kofi was amazing. He used to choreograph. We used to perform at universities, at events, like Liquid in the club, when I used to go to the club. But yeah, we used to perform, and it was just so fun, because it was something that took your mind away from the academic stuff. and it was a great time. I was watching videos of like our performances, and I was like, actually, we did well. We were good. Like, and
no,
I say
you were excellent. Not
we
good.
were good.
Excellent.
Okay, I received that because Kofi, your choreography. That's why I'm waiting for you to make a comeback. Yeah, I know you're a dad or whatever. Bring the kids in. You know, bring the kids in. Dad and son choreography. Dad and daughter choreography. So. Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like you're really resilient, and I'm just, you know, I'm taken back by some of the skills that you have within your industry. But sadly, not everybody has these skills. Sadly, not everyone is able to use positive self-talk, or not everyone has that identity of who they are. And you know, rejection in the industry leads to self-rejection. So I would like you to maybe share some tips, maybe 2 tips on how to recover from rejection. So the things that have worked for you in the past.
Okay, sorry, I'm not serious most of the time. So I actually thought about when I was driving back home from that audition, and I was singing Destiny's Child. I'm doing so. That actually made me feel so much better.
Okay,
it was a
why?
positive song. Because I was like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, I can get through this. Like, you know, it's a show. Let me support the people that are doing it, and let me use this as an opportunity to grow, and say to myself, the next time I'm gonna get that. And the next time it was at Runway House, and the next time that was they had a show at Move It, I was in it, you know. And you know, I was performing, living my best life. So one thing that I would say is just know that, you know, you may have got rejected from that, but you've not been rejected from everything else. You've got skills that other people may not have. It was the style that it was contemporary dance, and I didn't start that way. My roots were in hip hop. So I just had to train that. So I had to say to myself, but you're good at other things. I had to talk to myself. So I would say self-talk, like literally call your name, whatever your name is. If your name is Sally, you are good. Yeah, it's okay. Like, you can do this. It may take a while for you to really believe that. You know, like, I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, I wake up and I definitely believe that. It's an ongoing thing. You have to keep doing it. It might have to be a few times during the day, and say, you know, I'm great, I'm amazing. Again, also waking up in the morning, I pray, I say my affirmations. Do you have affirmations that you say about yourself, that you say to yourself? You affirm your greatness, you affirm that. You may not believe it yet, but by speaking it and declaring it, it will start becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's another thing. And I would just say, just continue to develop yourself for you, not for anyone else. So part of the concept of Movement 21, I know we've not got to that point yet, but I'm just going to briefly say it, is to work on you for you. So it's open to anyone who's not even a dancer, but I did target at dancers. And the reason why I started it was my frustration within myself for not training as much as I should be, and then being like, oh, but why am I not doing well in this? But you have to train. It's not training to be perfect, but it's to train yourself to grow. So it's about that journey. And like you said, you know, what is it? I've lost the phrase. Damn, it's gonna come back. Anyway, it's just do something to grow as opposed to wanting to be perfect. And the things I've been rejected for, I was just like, okay, well, that was just not for me, and God's got something better for me. And sometimes I do feel like, oh, do you know what? I really did well in that. Why wasn't it? And sometimes I'm just like, okay, like it just wasn't meant to be. And then when I get the next day, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I was supposed to be doing. Do you know what I mean? So you get that revelation later down the line. And our industry is hard though as well, because obviously sometimes you get a job and then you're waiting for ages before the next job, and you go to auditions. I would say focus on other things that you enjoy. Like, I call myself a creative entrepreneur. I now have a YouTube channel. I love creating, and I love creating content. You know, I enjoy other things. I dance just to dance for myself and for my well-being. Do other things, not just focus on, oh my gosh, my career. I trade Forex, which is completely different to trading, but I bring my creativity into it when I go into the financial markets. Do you know what I mean? Like, I bring my creativity into other realms. The last 2 weeks I've been working for my old humanitarian organization, I brought my creativity into that, you know.
Yeah.
Like, do other things. Don't just focus on that one thing. Yes, that is your focus, that's your goal, but to kind of not put so much pressure on yourself, especially we were at, this season of Corona, the arts world was very, very much affected. So there was nothing, you know. There was some, you know, I did some online auditions, didn't even hear back. But am I going to let that determine who I am? No, I'm just going to be like, okay, like sometimes you can, it's okay to big up yourself. It's okay to say they're not ready for me. Do you know what I mean? Even if you don't believe it, say it. They're not ready for me. No matter
no,
if
what
you're
you're
not
saying is amazing. I actually think that you need to mentor dancers.
That is the
no,
goal.
Honestly,
that is the goal.
Because what you're saying is what I would tell my clients, and you know, you said so many things, and you've literally said the things that I was going to say. The last thing that you said is focus on other things, and that's probably one of the key things. Not the key thing, but one of the things that I love to encourage people to do. And I would describe it like this. So imagine a building with a ceiling, and there are two pillars that are holding it up. Now, if one of the pillars were to crumble, what would happen to the ceiling? What would happen?
It would just collapse.
It would collapse, right? The ceiling would collapse. However, if you were to maybe put more pillars underneath the ceiling, so add an additional 2 pillars and say there were 4 pillars holding the ceiling, if one of them were to crumble, what would happen to the ceiling?
You'll still be standing. It'll still be there.
Exactly. And the pillars more or less represent the things that we focus on in our lives. Now, imagine that, you know, all your focus is on dance, which is just one of the pillars, and dance isn't going right because of, let's say, COVID. Your whole life will collapse. And that is why, like you said, it's so important to focus on other areas of your life, to build other areas, so that there's less pressure to do really well on a certain area, and so that you're enjoying other aspects of your life, so that you are experiencing different things in your life and not just that one thing, like for example dance.
It's so great what you said, because I kind of felt that when I was kind of working full-time in the kind of humanitarian field, I always didn't understand how people can just do a 9 to 5. I'm like, even gym, or do something creative outside, or something else, or you play games and stuff like that. Like, I feel like, you know, what you said is amazing for anyone in any industry. Don't just focus on that thing alone. There's other things. You're more than just you know, a doctor. You're more than just an accountant. Like, you are someone, you're a human. Like, what are the different, and I would say to people, like, maybe just take time and find out who you are, find out what I like to do, you know. You know, if it's collecting Pokemon cards, like, that's your hobby, do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't just, because then what I say to myself is that I don't want to end up resenting dance because it's not getting me to where I want to get to quick enough. Do you know what I mean? So, and with dance, like, as creatives, sometimes you have to do other things. Sometimes you have to do other things. Like, I worked in the gym. Like, I worked in the gym for a hot minute. I didn't like it, but I knew that, okay, but I learned a lot from doing that experience. Do you know what I mean? And then I got into learning how to trade Forex, because I want that financial freedom, so I'm able to do dance and enjoy it and not think, yes, I want to be paid correctly for my artistry, but I don't want to resent dance because it's not getting me a mortgage or getting me this. Do you know what I mean? So I focus on other things as well. And then when I took my focus away from dance and I just enjoyed it, that's when I found that things were happening, like, dance wise, and I was achieving goals that I was like, oh, I didn't even know I was ready to achieve this yet.
So it might mean that you're performing better. It's not impairing your performance. So like I said, the paradox of perfectionism is that when we're trying to be so perfect, and when we just focus on one area and we're very rigid, very strict, oppositely or paradoxically, it can impair how well you do, meaning that you might not get certain bookings, and then it will affect your overall experience of that particular
and just to say one thing as well, it's an ongoing thing that you have to do and work on. So I'm not saying that I'm there. So if anyone's on here thinking, oh my gosh, Oluwatosin, she's like, oh, the guru, I work on this, and I think that's what people don't remember. It's like a daily thing. You have to get into a habit of reminding yourself and working on that.
And you know what? That is probably one of the problems when it comes to comparing yourselves to others, because a perfectionist might say, oh, they're doing really well, I'm not doing well. And a perfectionist will not be able to see that, oh, that person works really hard, that person has probably failed several times, that person probably didn't land that big job for a couple of years before they got there. So like you said, I think it's important to understand that you do work really hard, and we shouldn't just look at you like, oh, you just landed and you know you are stopping here. No, you're still a work in progress. And it's not a good thing to compare yourself to other people, because you will not get the full story. You won't see what happens behind their performance. You won't see the times where they failed and cried and been rejected several times. So let's talk about some well-being tips. So maybe give us 2 well-being tips. So someone who might be a dancer within this chat, or someone who struggles with perfectionism. What would you
I would say, I would say give yourself time to make mistakes. Give yourself time not to be good so that you can learn to be great. You know, like there's times where I've been in a class and I've just flopped, you know, and I was like, oh, cringe. And then I go back to that same class and then I do better than I did last time. You know what I mean? If I was perfect the first time, where is the level that I could, where is the ladder? Do you know what I mean? Just give yourself time to grow. You know, I know, because I've been at points where I didn't feel good enough, and I knew I had to work hard to get to that place. And just try to not be perfect all the time. Laugh at yourself, laugh at your errors. Like I laugh at myself a lot. Like, you know, the other day I was taking a class online, I was doing videos or whatever, and I posted one where I just forgot it, because I was like, I'm human, and learning routines online is you know, is a new kind of normal you know, in the dance world. And I would just say learn to dance for you as well. Like I have something called Movement 21, and it's kind of bringing people together as a community to dance and challenge themselves for 21 days. And in that process, movement, I spelled it the French way because I liked that it had a U in it. So it's actually Mouvement 21. And the U is about you. So it's not about looking perfect for a casting director or whatever. It's about it's about doing you. Like, you know, and I decided to do it on social media because it keeps you accountable. Because you've said to the world, I'm going to do this. And now it keeps you accountable. Because also for me, one thing that's really helps me is accountability. When you're accountable to someone, you have to make sure you follow through. So that's another thing. And Movement 21 is to encourage the fun in dance and the enjoyment in dance. So it's not all about, oh my gosh, I need to train for this audition, oh my gosh, I need to go to this class to be seen. Do you go to the class, but go to the class because you really want to get that person's choreography, and you really want to tell yourself that I can do it, not to be like, oh, I want them to, because that's been some of the things I've heard. Oh, I want to be seen, I want them to like me or whatever. If they like you, they'll come and find you. And I'll say that boldly because I've had that happen to me, and I never thought in a million years it will happen to me. That someone will reach out to me, you know. And I just thank God, because I focused on myself. And when I stopped focusing on everyone else and I focused on my journey, you know, use other people as inspiration, but don't compare like your A to their Z. And that's it.
Definitely. What would I add to that? Gosh, you said them all. I would add your environment. Because sometimes you can be around people that have very high standards also, so perfectionists imposing their perfectionist beliefs on you. So for example, parents can be perfectionists, and then they can impose their high standards, which might be realistic because they never achieved it, on their children, so on you. And that is also very dangerous, because what are you supposed to think? You know, your parents always speak the truth, right? They always get things right. However, if they're setting such high standards and you're not able to achieve it, what else can you think other than, oh, I'm a failure, or I'm a disappointment, or I'm not good enough? So I think one of the key things is to be aware of how your environment or the people around you is maybe impacting your strive to constantly be excellent, and not giving you room to make mistakes. if you make mistakes, are they criticizing you as opposed to encouraging you? And so I think these are some of the things that you need to be aware of, because the industry in itself is tough.
Yeah.
But then in your personal life, if you have those same critiques, it's not helpful. And I am a living example to that. I constantly put myself in situations that make me feel uncomfortable. I have reached a place in my life where I really couldn't care less what people have to say. And I'm not saying this in an obnoxious way, but in a way which shows that I have progressed. I have had difficulties. I've also feared failure, and very odd fears as well, but I've had to put myself out there, and I've had to also remove myself from certain environments in order to progress. So that's one well-being tip I would add.
That's amazing.
But yeah, thank you so much, Oluwatosin. I have seen things from a very different perspective.
Me too.
And I know that I've been part of your journey, but I've never known what it takes to be who you are. So it's been very insightful for myself, and I know that even the people here, they've taken something away. Even if they're not dancers, I know that people may be thinking about things a bit differently, and they might have an understanding of what perfectionism looks like as well. So thank you for being
Thank
here.
you. I've learned so much as well, and I hope that everyone join the Movement 21 challenge.
Yes,
for anyone who's a dancer, and you don't have to post it. You can just email me, and I'm doing some movement coaching sessions as well, which is going to be open to non-dancers as well, because that's the route I want to move towards. So, but thank you so much, Jen.
What's the Instagram for Movement 21?
Is at Movement 21, but spelled with a U. So MOUVEMENT 21.
Okay. And what's your personal Instagram, if people?
My personal Instagram is on the corner, but it's Oluwatosin, OLUWATOSIN.OM.
Cool, perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for your contribution. It's been really good as always. I've enjoyed today's conversation. So if you have any comments, please do drop them below. I'm going to save this Instagram live on my page. If you have any suggestions for topics as well, please DM me. And next week is going to be the last live. Can you believe it? I can't. It's going to be the last live.
You've done so well.
I've been really consistent. It's been a journey for me, and I'm really excited for what the future holds. But next week is going to be our last live. So once again, please do send me your suggestions, and I will hopefully see all of you next week. So have a great weekend, and take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.